Was definitely red flags. You know, we all have reached out and tried to help her. She was really scared, and it was just, you know, it was just something that she was trying to get away from it.
Those words about trying to escape would come too late, because just hours after walking out of jail, Daquan Marcato Jones would gun down Kiera Massenberg, their 6-year-old daughter, and 2 others unrelated people. And here's what makes this case particularly chilling. Jones had been released from jail just hours before the murders, freed on a $35,000 bond after brutally assaulting Kiera just weeks earlier. But it gets worse, because Kiera herself had posted the collateral for his release. Why would a victim help free her abuser? What you're about to discover are the manipulation tactics and escalating violence that trapped Kiera in a cycle she desperately tried to escape, and the systemic failures that made her murder not just predictable, but preventable.
She was screaming to the top of her lungs. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Just out of nowhere. He's so weak. And then he proceeded to Kiera.
Kiera Lachey Massenberg was born on June 8, 1997 in Rocky Mount, a working-class city in eastern North Carolina. Those who knew her described her as someone with an infectious smile and a positive outlook that could light up any room. Her cousin, Coretta Johnson, lived right across the street and cherished Kiera's daily presence. But the person who brought Kiera the most joy was her daughter. Around 2018, Kiera gave birth to Zoe Jones, a little girl who family members described as bright, silly, and smart, with a sweet spirit that drew everyone in. Zoe loved dancing and had a particular fondness for Bruno Mars songs. Her aunt, Shanetta Peterson, would later say that the bond between Kiera and Zoe was unbreakable, describing Kiera as a devoted mother whose entire world revolved around her daughter. But sharing custody of Zoe meant Kiera remained connected to someone who would ultimately destroy both their lives, Daquan Marcato Jones. Born around 1992, Daquan Jones was a lifelong resident of Rocky Mount. On the surface, he might have seemed like just another local trying to get by, but court records revealed a man with a documented pattern of violence for over a decade. Jones's criminal history started early, and the pattern is telling. In 2008, he was charged with simple affray, which is essentially getting into a public fight or brawl. The following year, 2009, brought assault and battery charges along with misdemeanor larceny, which is theft of property. By 2010, he was already violating the terms of his probation, showing he couldn't even follow court-ordered conditions meant to keep him out of trouble. But things escalated significantly in 2019 when Jones was convicted of assault on a female and false imprisonment, though it's unclear if this incident involved Kiera or someone else. What is clear, however, is that Jones had established himself as someone capable of controlling and violent behavior long before his relationship with Kiera reached its breaking point. The relationship between Kiera and Daquan was characterized by what authorities would later describe as numerous domestic disputes throughout their time together. The first documented incident that we know involved Kiera specifically occurred on November 11, 2023, exactly 9 months before the murders. Rocky Mount police arrested Jones for communicating threats after he told Kiera something truly chilling. Those weren't empty words. According to the arrest report, Jones got physical with Kiera during this confrontation. When police arrived to detain him, Jones resisted arrest, defiantly telling officers he wouldn't be taken into custody. He was charged with communicating threats, disorderly conduct, and resisting a public officer. This case was still pending when the next, even more violent incident occurred. Fast forward to July 15, 2024. What happened on this day should have been the final warning that Kiera's life was in immediate danger. According to police reports, Jones punched Kiera in the face during a domestic dispute with such force that he fractured her nose and knocked out multiple teeth. The injuries were severe enough that he was charged with felony assault inflicting serious bodily injury, a Class F felony in North Carolina that can carry significant prison time. Jones was booked into the Edgecombe County Detention Center. His bond was set at $35,000 secured. And here's where the tragic complexity of domestic violence becomes painfully clear. Despite being the victim of this brutal assault, despite having her face permanently altered by his violence, Kiera provided the collateral to secure Jones's release. Why would she do this? Experts in domestic violence will tell you this is heartbreakingly common. Victims often remain emotionally entangled with their abusers through complex psychological factors: fear of retaliation, hope that the person will change, financial dependency, or concern for their children's relationship with the abusive parent. Kiera's decision wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of how deeply the cycle of abuse had trapped her. On August 10, 2024, Daquan Jones walked out of jail, freed by the woman whose teeth he had knocked out just weeks before. Within hours, he would use his freedom to commit an act so heinous that it would shock an entire community. But before we get to what happened in those early morning hours of August 11th, I need you to understand something crucial. Kiera had been trying to escape. Friends and family would later reveal that she had recognized the danger she was in. In what appears to have been an attempt to create distance from Jones, Kiera had been staying with friends at a home in Sharpsburg, a quiet residential area in Wilson County. This wasn't her usual residence, and she was there specifically to get away from the toxic environment of her relationship with Jones. With her at the home were two friends, Micaiah Page, a 27-year-old woman, and Devonte Ricks, a 30-year-old man. Also present was Micaiah's 5-year-old daughter. What none of them could have known was that Jones knew exactly where Kiera was, and as the clock ticked past midnight and into the early hours of August 11th, he was preparing to make sure she would never escape him again. At approximately 4:45 a.m. on August 11th, 2024, Daquan Jones arrived at the home on Weaver's Circle in Sharpsburg. He came armed and with intent. Within the next few minutes, Jones opened fire on everyone in that house, shooting Kiera and little Zoe. Devonte Ricks was critically wounded. But perhaps the most remarkable part of this horror is what happened to Micaiah Page. She was shot in the neck, with the bullet exiting through her face. Despite this devastating injury, the unimaginable pain and terror she must have been experiencing, Micaiah managed to do something extraordinary. She directed her 5-year-old daughter to flee to safety before she herself sought help. By approximately 5 a.m., Wilson County Sheriff's Office deputies and Sharpsburg police arrived at the scene of carnage. They found Micaiah and Devonte both gravely injured and immediately arranged for their transport to ECU Health Medical Center for emergency surgery. But Jones was gone, and so were Kiera and Zoe. Jones had loaded the wounded Kiera and critically injured Zoe into his vehicle and fled the scene. He drove approximately 10 miles, which would have taken about 10 to 15 minutes, to a home on Lay Road in Rocky Mount in Nash County. At around 5:10 to 5:15 a.m., he dropped the severely wounded Zoe at this location. Emergency medical services were called, alerting authorities that Jones was involved and on the move. But Jones wasn't done, because from there, he continued driving another 10 miles to his own residence on Jamie Road in Battleboro, also in Nash County. This would have taken another 10 to 15 minutes, putting his arrival at approximately 5:20 to 5:25 a.m. Meanwhile, Nash County Sheriff's Office deputies were rapidly closing in. They had been alerted through the emergency call from the Lee Road location where Zoe had been dropped off and were tracking Jones' vehicle. When they arrived at the Jamie Road residence at approximately 5:25 to 5:30 a.m., they made a sad discovery. Kira Massenberg was in the back seat of Jones' car, deceased from gunshot wounds. As deputies approached the house itself, they heard a gunshot from inside. Moments later, a man named Sean Alston exited the residence and informed officers that Jones had shot himself. Deputies entered to find Daquan Mercado Jones in the front bedroom, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A bullet had pierced through the wall or window.
As we speak, a 6-year-old girl is fighting for her life without her parents following an incident of domestic violence in Wilson County. Investigators say the girl's mother, Kira Massenberg, was shot and killed by her boyfriend, Daquan Jones. Within the last few hours, new court documents show Jones had a history of domestic violence against Massenberg. Detectives say he shot Massenberg, their daughter, and 2 other people.
The suspect was located in Nash County near a gold rock, and when officers pulled up, there was one fired. Law enforcement made entry into the house and found one subject that was deceased inside of the house.
Well, last year, Jones was arrested, accused of communicating threats against Massenberg.
The immediate horror was over, but the tragedy was not. Little Zoe Jones, who had been dropped off critically wounded, underwent emergency surgery. Doctors fought to save her life, but on the evening of August 12, 2024, Zoe succumbed to her injuries. Think about what I just told you. Remember how at the beginning I mentioned that Jones had been released from jail just hours before this shooting? He walked out of Edgecombe County Detention Center on August 10th, freed on a bond that his victim had helped secure. Less than 24 hours later, he had murdered her, murdered their daughter, and critically wounded 2 other people. Wilson County Sheriff Calvin Woodard issued a statement that captured the devastating preventability of this tragedy. This does not make any sense when you see someone who could have taken a second chance in life to change his behavior. His actions have restricted a child from having a chance to enjoy life, he said, adding that prayers go out to the family and emphasizing that the system needs to work harder to protect innocent people from this kind of violence.
We start this evening with breaking news. This mother right here is dead and her 6-year-old is in critical condition. 2 other people were injured and the suspect is dead. All in what investigators are calling a suicide. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Julian Grace. Well, this situation played out across 2 counties early this morning. Crime scenes in Wilson and also Nash County. WRAL's Carly Haynes is live in Wilson County at the sheriff's office there. Carly, what more can you tell us?
Well, law enforcement believes that this all got started through a domestic dispute. Now, the Wilson County Sheriff's Office says that 6-year-old is currently undergoing surgery. It's unclear if she's going to live at this point. 2 of the other victims were taken to ECU Health, also undergoing surgery. I want to show you the location where this all got started. This was the scene hours later at a home in Wilson County where deputies say that first happened. At 5 this morning, deputies found a man and a woman here. The sheriff's office said the suspect, 32-year-old Daquan Jones, then drove off with a woman whom he had a relationship with and her 6-year-old child, later dropping off that child at a home in Nash County with a gun wound. Listen to this broadcastify radio traffic from Nash County EMS.
Passenger call units reference Lee Road. Sheriff's office on scene advises going to be a 6-year-old female victim with shallow breathing. Is requesting emergency traffic.
And Jones is accused of then driving to a friend's home on Jamie Road in Nash County, then himself. The woman he was with was found in her car. I want to go now to WRAL's Laura Levine, who actually spoke with the friend at that crime scene.
The hours-long investigation began in Wilson County, where several people were shot, including that 6-year-old girl. The investigation ended right here on Jamie Road in Nash County, where investigators found a woman inside of a car and a man inside of this house. Nash County Sheriff deputies surrounded this home on Jamie Road. Family members of the victim wiping tears and holding each other as the bodies were removed from the scene.
It happened. And it's like a Lifetime movie.
Unfortunately, this is no movie. Sean Alston lives at the home that has now become the center of a crime scene. He said he was sleeping when he heard his friend Daquan Jones come in the house.
Describe what you heard then.
Nothing. Pow. Pow. And then police. Get down, get down.
Quick moments, and he had no idea what was going on. But he tells me he has known both Jones and his now girlfriend for years, still processing the loss of life.
You seem so numb to the situation. I'm sure it's just...
For now. For now.
I spoke with Sheriff Keith Stone by phone while I was on the scene about how this situation unfolded.
There is a BOLO put out for the possible suspect, and the suspect was located in Nash County near a gold rock. And when officers pulled up, there was one fired. Law enforcement made entry into the house and found one subject that was deceased inside of the house.
Jones was found from a self-inflicted gun wound. Before that, he shot his girlfriend. She was found inside of the car Jones was driving when he fled the scene at Weaver Circle. And family members related to the victim that was found here on Jamie Road tell me that it was too soon to talk about the situation. However, they ask for prayers from the community at this time. Laura Levine, WREL News in Nash County.
And family members of the woman who say her name was Kiera Massenberg. She was 27 years old. They gave us these photos of her, and we are still working to confirm the identities of the other victims. Carly Haynes, WRAL News, live in Wilson County.
Of the 4 people Jones shot that morning, 2 survived. Makia Page, despite being shot in the neck with the bullet exiting her face, recovered and was released from the hospital. Devontae Ricks, who had been in critical condition, also survived his injuries. But Kiera and Zoe were gone forever.
He came in there and he put to my head, and I'm just begging and pleading to him, please, please, don't me again, please.
Tonight, only on WREL, she survived. A 6-year-old girl, and that girl's mother did not. She explains what led up to the shooting and how she was able to live to talk about it today. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm Gerald Owens. This is what we know. Police say Daquan Jones shot and killed the girlfriend and their 6-year-old daughter. He also shot 2 other people before turning the gun on himself. WRL's Chelsea Donovan traveled to Greenville today to speak with the woman who survived. It's an interview you will only see on WRAL.
She was screaming to the top of her lungs. I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
6-year-old Zoe didn't want to leave Makia Page's Sharpsburg home where friends had gathered late Saturday night.
Just out of nowhere, he's Zoe, and then he proceeded to Kiera.
It was an argument between Daquan Jones and Kiera Massenberg about Zoe leaving that prompted the spree, according to Makia Page, who was next.
Then he came for me. And I just remember walking towards me and me trying to run, but I still got hit.
Paige was first here in her driveway along with another friend, Devontae Hicks. She says she started running for safety to this door here to get into her bedroom to hide.
He came in there and he put the gun to my head, and I'm just begging and pleading to him, please, please, don't shoot me again, please.
This is her daughter, Bella, who witnessed 4 people being shot.
I yelled to my daughter. I said, Bella, run. Get out the house and run.
Bella made it to a neighbor's to safety.
She got one here, one there, and that one.
Makia is now at home recovering with her daughter by her side, but her best friend and her best friend's daughter are gone.
Just tore me to pieces, getting the news about Zoe and Kiera.
Paige says after Jones shot everyone, he got in Kiera's car to leave.
She had to move them out of the driver's seat so that he could get in the driver's seat to even drive the car.
Paige described what she saw as pure evil.
I could just look in his eyes. It wasn't him.
Jones soon got in the car, dropped his wounded daughter off at this random house nearby before ending up here with Kiara's body in the car. He took his own life at this home in Nash County. It's a tragedy that has rocked several families and an entire community.
They didn't deserve it. Grateful, that God spared my life and allowed me and my daughter to still be here.
Chelsea Donovan,
And here's what makes this even more disturbing. Despite Jones's long criminal history, despite the threats he had made just 9 months earlier, despite the brutal assault that left Tierra with a fractured nose and missing teeth, no domestic violence protective order had been filed in Edgecombe County. The system that should have protected Tierra had failed at multiple points. The bond amount of $35,000 has been heavily criticized in the aftermath. Community members and advocates questioned whether this amount was appropriate given the severity of Jones's assault on Kiera and his documented history of violence. Should a man who had threatened his partner, resisted arrest, and then physically assaulted her so badly that he knocked out her teeth really have been eligible for bond at all? These are questions that haunt Kiera's family members. The broader context makes this even more terrifying. This incident occurred during what would become a record-breaking year for domestic violence homicides in North Carolina. The North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence tracked 94 intimate partner homicides and 22 related suicides in 2024, with 75% involving firearms and 23% being murder-suicides like the one that killed Kiera and Zoe. The North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation reported even higher numbers, documenting 155 broader domestic-related homicides, marking a 14.8% increase from the previous year and representing nearly a 70% rise since 2018. These aren't just statistics, they're sisters, mothers, daughters, and children whose lives were cut short by people who claimed to love them. In the aftermath of the unimaginable tragedy, Rocky Mount came together to remember two lives that meant so much to so many people. On August 18, 2024, just 1 week after the murders, friends and family held a fundraiser in Rocky Mount to help cover funeral costs. 4 days later, on August 22nd, dozens of people gathered at Mo and Dee's in downtown Rocky Mount for a balloon release, a spot that Kiera had frequented during her life. Attendees wore purple, the color symbolizing domestic violence awareness. Doves and balloons were released into the sky as a final tribute. Shanetta Peterson, Zoe's aunt, spoke about her niece's spirit. But perhaps the most important message came from Anthony Knight, a close friend of Kiera's who had witnessed her struggles firsthand. Speaking to the crowd and to anyone watching who might be in a similar situation, Knight issued an urgent plea. His words carried the weight of someone who had seen the red flags, who had tried to help, and now had to live with the knowledge that it hadn't been enough.
New at 11, people came together to celebrate the lives of domestic violence victims, two in particular. Family and friends say Kiera Massenberg and her 6-year-old daughter Zoe lost their lives nearly 2 weeks ago.
Investigators say Zoe's father killed them and shot 2 other people before taking his own life. CBS 17's Greg Funderburg takes us to a balloon release that took place to celebrate their lives.
Family and friends are still wrapping their minds around the tragic of Kiera Massenberg and her daughter Zoe.
It's just a dream because when I come out my house, I will look across the street and see her and she's not there.
Both of their lives were cut short this month when investigators say Kiera's boyfriend, Daquan Jones, took her life and their 6-year-old daughter's life. Jones is accused of 2 others who are recovering from their injuries before he killed himself. Thursday night, doves were released in honor of the mother and daughter, followed by a balloon release. And it's a moment family members say tells a story of who Kiera was to people in Rocky Mount.
It means so much because we knew she was big and she was very popular, but this right here just shows that her spirit was so sweet and that everybody wanted to be around her.
And her loved ones still can't accept she won't be coming home.
It's just hard. It's really hard. Because losing her is like losing my own child.
It don't seem real because we're around her every single day and just
I just keep hearing their voice.
And even though it's hard to accept, they wanted this gathering to be more of a celebration.
I want her to be remembered by her smile and by her energy. She gave a great energy. You never had a dull moment. She was always positive, never negative.
Family and friends are set to gather for a visitation tomorrow night, followed by a celebration of life on Saturday. If you'd like to get more information about those services, head over to our website, cbs17.com, and click on this story. I'm Greg Funderburg for CBS 17 News.
Family and friends grieve the loss of Kiera and Zoe with a message to look out for signs of abuse.
And certain people say certain things, I just say believe it. You never know what somebody will do to you.
Together, they lift balloons in the air. They'll take their journey above, a family below with a long road ahead. And family members tell us they wish they had been notified when Jones got out of jail. Carly Haynes, WRAL News, Rocky Mount.
To help with the financial burden of laying Kiera and Zoe to rest, Nia Barner organized a GoFundMe campaign on behalf of Karen Massenberg, Kiera's aunt. The page described the victims with heartbreaking clarity. Kiera was a devoted mother, a cherished friend, and a pillar of strength, while Zoe brought joy and love to everyone she met. The campaign emphasized that the bond they shared was unbreakable. Formal funeral services were held with viewings on August 23rd at Greater New Testament Holy Church in Sharpsburg, followed by a celebration of life on August 24th at Redbud Holy Church in Rocky Mount. But beyond the memorials and the grief, this tragedy has forced uncomfortable conversations about how North Carolina handles domestic violence cases. Advocacy groups have been sounding the alarm about the rising tide of intimate partner violence in the state, and Kiera and Zoe's deaths became yet another devastating example of what happens when the system fails. Organizations like the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Interact have noted a surge in domestic violence calls and incidents, particularly in the years following the COVID-19 pandemic. On September 4, 2024, domestic violence programs in North Carolina served 1,647 people, but they had to turn away 575 requests for help because they simply didn't have the resources. Think about that. Hundreds of people seeking help to escape dangerous situations who couldn't get it because of funding cuts and program limitations. These funding cuts are partly due to reductions in federal Victims of Crime Act allocations, which have severely strained programs that provide emergency shelter, counseling, and legal advocacy for domestic violence survivors. While people like Kiera are trying to escape, the safety net that should catch them is full of holes. There's also been a push for what's known as lethality assessment programs, where law enforcement uses specific criteria to determine how dangerous an abuser is and connects high-risk victims immediately with advocacy services. Research has shown that these programs can significantly reduce domestic violence homicides, but they require resources and training that many jurisdictions lack. The case has also reignited discussions about North Carolina's approach to firearm access for domestic abusers. 75% of intimate partner homicides in North Carolina in 2024 involved firearms. Federal law prohibits people convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence crimes from possessing firearms, but enforcement is inconsistent, and there are loopholes for dating partners versus spouses. And with Jones's death, there was no trial, no formal legal reckoning for what he did. The investigation was closed. But for Kiera's family, for Zoe's loved ones, for the two survivors who carry physical and emotional scars, the impact continues every single day. What do you think about this case? Do you think the system could have protected Kiera even after she bailed him out herself? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.